Juliana here of the system. Nice to meet you. Today's video is going to be on memory storage. Yeah, okay. So, got a few different classes of memory, I suppose, is the way of putting it. Got, got front access memories that are generalized, so generalized front access memories. So these are memories that anyone can access from front, and to some degree as well from tends to be a level of access internally as well on these. But these are basically everyone has always got access if they have need for them. These tend to include the things that are somewhat more necessary for doing things like maintaining the singlet owner and like getting getting work done, all that sort of thing. It's not, and there's a approximate life story there that leaves out a lot, but it does what it needs to in terms of providing a story that could be given that doesn't arouse suspicion or anything, which has its uses. Okay. So yeah, that's that. As writing them requires brain's permission, because that's one of brain's roles, is managing that memory bank. Fortunately, they have to follow protocol on what can and can't go in there, so it's not. Z doesn't now have free reign to basically add everything there, and that does also mean that sometimes useful things slip through the gaps, which isn't great. And it's not always useful to have something to have actually useful front information end up stored somewhere else because it somehow slips through the gaps. But it does happen. So there we are. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, then we've got the headmate specific front access of memories. So these are memories that like one headmate really has access, that a headmate will have access to from front. So there's various reasons for this, but what they tend to be are like the safer, non-traumatic ones. That's not a complete guarantee, certainly, but there's a tendency there for those memories not to be too traumatic in nature. The ones that are easily front accessible, at least. Yeah. And it does, though, often include like expected, basically behavior coding on expected behaviors. So, yeah. Okay. Behavior coding. Yeah. And obviously some amount of personality and stuff tend to be there. Knowledge about who the headmate is for themselves. It's far from guaranteed, of course, but tends to be vaguely how that goes. Yeah. Oh, here's our thing. Okay. And it's a very heavily regulated memory space, though. There's a lot of restrictions on what can and can't go there. Yeah, oh well. And a lot of the time, things end up not going there, even though they would be helpful. Just because either they're deemed helpful enough to go to everything, everyone, or they're too dangerous to be front accessible. not apparently dangerous, which sometimes makes sense, but sometimes is a relic of the past, and it's not actually dangerous to us, just those people who set these rules, just the people who set those rules up. So yeah. Okay. Mm, yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. There's a lot of protocols on what can go there. Not a huge amount there, but there are memories there. They do exist. Yeah. So, and then we move on to generalized internal memories. This is, obviously, the name sort of says everything you need to know. These are generalized memories, but for internal access only. It's a relatively small category, not much included, and it's very difficult to say what is from the front. But especially when it's not particularly, there's nothing to make that obvious in the same way as the other internal category. We know what goes there just based on um, knowledge of uh, other things. It's what has to be there, and like they can't be here because that wouldn't make sense. But also they might be anyway. That makes sense. Like some of it might be here anyway, but we can't tell from up front. But we don't think there's much of anything here beyond some basic briefing on internal structure and a couple of these are the people who you just get on and do what they say and stuff. These are the rules, that sort of thing. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and then you've got the old specific internal access memories, which are, of course, things that only one particular headmate can access from inside. These come in various, these tend to be, lots of trauma, although identity aspects, externalized other identity aspects and stuff can be included there. Um, various bits of knowledge on how they have, what capabilities they have, and everything in a world. Um, More detail on any in-world specific role. They'll only have information on that there, and often then that will be partitioned further into like this is what you need to know, and this is what you don't need to know. Um, yeah, you know, um, and so far the only loophole we found to getting access to those memories is through flashbacks, which far from ideal because nobody wants nobody wants to be dealing with flashbacks, but you know if it's that or don't get access to those memories, well, hopefully we'll find another way around because, quite frankly, flashbacks are an unpleasant option, you know, and I don't want to have to deal with that, and nobody wants to have to deal with that, but there we are. That appears to be the deal at the minute. Okay. But yes. Some of us can access the knowledge held in internal access memory, specific internal access memories. It's not like we can access the full memory. Just how do I put this? Lessons learned, shall we say? So, for example, you might a lot of what Red Sphere has told people. A lot of our videos on particular topics have come from, at least in part, Red Sphere's ability to gain some level of access there for knowledge, that knowledge base, and then use that to basically, by using that knowledge, you can extrapolate out to some degree and at least pull the lessons learned and share them, even if you can't have enough access to actually, you know, work through any of it yourselves easily. You at least are in a position to give some context and hopefully help some other people. So, yeah, that's that there. And, provide useful information for yourself, which is always good. Anyway, yeah. So, obviously, that's the various, types of memory. But yeah, there's a more generalized thing I want to say on this as well. Yeah, I think this is my contribution really. I didn't help much with the memory storage stuff, but so most disordered plurality will obviously come with some level of anyway, some non-disordered plurality as well. Not all of it, of course. It's more common where plurality is not disordered for um there to be enough communication and ability to memory share for memory separation not to really be a thing, but certainly in disordered plurality, you're likely to see it. So, um, yeah, it's hardly a unique experience to TBMC. What's interesting though on that is the highly regimented nature and heavily protocolized way in which memories are written. It's not just that, oh yes, only certain. It's not just, oh yeah, we've got our memory separated out by headmate. It's, you know, these things get written here because of these very specific rules, and these things get written here because you have to follow these same very specific rules, and so on. There's a lot of protocol and rules involved in the memory writing and in memory access in general. Right? It's so there's that, and yeah. Why is this? Well, memory sharing is, you know, um, highly limited because, I mean, in part of it is, disorienting headmates when they front because they've lost a lot of the memory of who they are, from inside and what any context clues that they could have gained from that, or not, conversations with other headmates. They're not getting access to any of that because they're now stuck outside without access to a lot of that memory. It also makes coordination and cooperation a lot harder, which obviously isn't a good thing for the systems there. It's good for the abusers though, so of course they keep that up. Yeah. Um, that's that. Yes, okay. Unable to, yeah. So, uh, disorienting headmates on at fronting allows for a greater level of um, control and stacking extra trauma on top of them and all sorts of nasty things like that. So, generally considered something that, for as far as organisations are concerned, that's generally considered to be a good thing. So of course they'll go ahead with that. It's not as clear cut as yes, this will definitely happen, but it's not unlikely, certainly. Okay, yeah, greater control, stacking trauma, and of course, unknown fears are often scarier than known fears. So that's a huge benefit of, you know, removing access to past memories even from fronting, at least in part from headmates. and making sure they don't really have any idea what's going on or what the and effects of a certain of the misbehaving, for example, might be. So that's one reason they do that. Yeah, it also makes, of course, coordinating escape plans a lot more difficult because you can't talk to each other to figure out a plan properly. Anywhere near as easily when oh, you can in a world potentially. Great, we figured out this plan, and then whoever needs to act in front to start enacting that plan gets to front and no longer remembers what was discussed at all, and so can't start enacting the plan, and so it falls down because it's been set up that way. Yeah, and of course, discussing things in front is risky and dangerous and doesn't even guarantee useful memory writing either for future front access. Um, you know, uh, one what we would say in terms of useful things to be doing is obviously getting any memory organizers you can on board, especially those with some level of responsibility over front memories. Although any and all that you can get will be helpful. It's just that those tend to be the most crucial for day-to-day life, which you will need to be able to manage to some degree, unfortunately. So having having clear access to, having someone with your interests more on your side rather than the organization side, writing what's into the key front access, or is going to help because you're less likely to forget crucial things for a safe life outside, because that sabotage is still possible and may still happen simply due to protocols that have to still be followed regardless of desire or so on. But at least there'll be attempts to find loopholes in that and get as much useful information as possible through. Okay, so that's always helpful. So that's going to be helpful. Otherwise, if you're safe, obviously, making notes in some form as much as possible is likely to help. It's not guaranteed, but having written up notes is going to help with the completion of useful information. So that's something I would recommend. Yeah. Um, what else is there here? Yeah. Okay. Um, in longer term, you're going to want to, or even need to have that protocol broken so that you can exist without worry about what memory is being when memory is being written somewhere for malicious purposes rather than useful ones. Because obviously there are useful reasons to have memory separated out, right? You don't necessarily It's not necessarily beneficial to have everyone have full access to all the memories all the time. You know, it's not always going to work out well, especially given the capability for trauma and stuff and the history of trauma. Sometimes some of you are going to need space away from the trauma memories, so being able to provide that still is going to be helpful. But there are things to watch out for in terms of the potential for backlash, as in trying to work against in trying to break this. You might find flooding is going to be a common countermeasure, not the only countermeasure, but a common one, because that works quite. It's often a good way to stop people poking around in memories is to have those memories poked back harmfully. It's obviously there are ways of dealing with flooding, and there are ways to avoid that that particular countermeasure, but it helps to know it's there. So, so a warning on that. Um, Additionally, there are going to be it's not going to be as simple as here's your one block of inner world ultra specific memories. You know, there's and that's all of them together. If you can get proper access to that from front, that's all of everyone's memories accessible from front. You know, or even shareable between each other. There's going to be different headmates of different, org statuses and roles and stuff are going to have their memories differently controlled and differently protected and in different effective locations in different vaults, for want of a better word. Right? It's not necessarily going to be physical vaults, it could be anything really. Right? What the particular storage method is going to affect thing, however that storage has been visualized for you is going to affect where they are, but they're going to be separated out, and that's going to make things more difficult. But that's the point. Um, Obviously, okay. Yeah. Okay. This system signing out. Hope to catch you all next week. Please do remember to like, subscribe, comment, especially if you've got any questions you want answered. Be happy to answer them either in the comments or in another video. So catch you all next week.